with job opportunities based solely on your preferences for a job, and whereby hospitals directly apply to you rather than you spending hours making applications and then weeks or even months waiting to hear back about the outcome of those applications. We also run regular community events like these webinars, and also regular nurse meetups as well every couple of months. Obviously, please do sign up at MediMatch.io if you haven't already, and we'd love to welcome you to our thriving community. Today, we're joined by Tamara Tortosa, who is a quality and clinical education practitioner at Bupa Healthcare's Cromwell Hospital. As you know, Tamara will be talking us through how to build a successful career in theatres. Following on from Tamara's presentation, we'll hold a Q&A session as well in the second half. So please do send in any and all of your questions for her that you have through the chat box function at the bottom of your Zoom call, and we'll ask her at the end of the presentation. So Tamara, over to you.
Thank you, Joe. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. It is a pleasure to be talking about my passion, which is developing people, and in my area of hopefully expertise, which is theatres. So today we are going to be talking about how to build a successful career in theatres, and I'm hoping to give you some insights regarding this specialist area and how it can actually add value to your own career. Next slide, please. So I would like to introduce myself properly, a little bit more in depth. So my name is Tamara Tortosa. I am a nurse. I started my degree in Spain, and at the moment I am working as a quality and clinical education practitioner for theatres at Cromwell Hospital. And I started in post last year in September. So I suppose that this is not quite a very usual role in theatres, and it's something a bit innovative in the field. So I'm just going to tell you very quickly what it is that I do. I'm in charge of designing and implementing our quality and clinical education strategy, and I'm also in charge of our governance. So that means that I am there to give the reassurance to the organization that our theatres and that our service is safe, effective, caring, responsive, and well-led. And I do that through regular reporting on our quality KPIs, incidents, risks, etc., etc. So it's not so much a role about being hands-on teaching or like it will be for a clinical educator. It's more a role about the strategy and the framework around clinical education and quality. Well, so I think more important than my role at the moment for this forum is to talk about how is it that I've got here. So I got raised in Spain, as I said, and 15 days after I came to the UK. So that means I've never worked in Spain. All my work experience has happened in this country. I started working as a scrub nurse in a cosmetic surgery clinic, and soon I moved to St. Mary's Hospital in the same role of scrub nurse. So I did many surgical specialties in main theatres, and then I moved to the Lindo wing of that same hospital to get my band 6. And then after some time as a senior, I thought that I was missing something about nursing. I was so specialized in theaters, but I thought I was missing part of the picture regarding the perioperative care of the patient. So I decided to move into a different areas of specialism and do some intensive care in that same hospital. Throughout all that period, what remained constant was my passion about teaching. I loved having students and having new members of staff and induct them and teach them and build them up and see them develop and fly. So very soon I realized that that's what my future was, to create that opportunity and to support my staff through the development of their skills. So that's why I decided to move into a purely educational role as a clinical educator in complex care. For those who are unfamiliar with this, complex care is about patients with very complex needs who actually live in their own houses and require 2-to-1 or 1-to-1 support 24/7 to meet those very specialist clinical needs. So my role there was about teaching the carers and making sure that they were equipped with the right skills to actually do this job. And then after some time as a clinical educator, I got promoted to be the learning development lead in that same company, and this was now a national role. In terms of functions, yes, I was taking care of the learning and development piece, but I was also working hand to hand with the clinical director to develop and implement our quality strategy. And that's how I got kind of exposure to the two worlds of quality and education, which very rightly gave me the tools to be able to do the role that I'm doing now at Cromwell Hospital. And so this is how I got here. It is a bit of an unusual path, but if I want you to take a message from here is that you don't be scared or afraid of exploring new worlds and new jobs and going the extra mile and taking extra tasks, because it will only help you to the development of your own career. Next slide, please. In terms of continuous professional development, this is only a handful of the things I have done. I'm not going to bore you with my full-on CV, but I want to stress that it is extremely important to both develop your own skills in the clinical aspect, but also on the non-clinical aspect of the role, which sometimes in healthcare gets forgotten. People get so focused on the technical elements, but actually the non-clinical can take you forward in your career as well. Also, I've really never stopped learning, and I hope I never will. So just take the opportunity if you have to learn anything new. As I said, it will add value to your career. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. So before I get into the nitty-gritty on your career progression and how to get there, let me tell you a little bit of a story. When I was working at Tamara Hospital, I was a junior scrub nurse. I was working in the vascular theater, and my line manager then, she was the band 7 in charge of vascular. She was my mentor. She took me under her wing, and she taught me absolutely everything that that she could. And I'm still so grateful until today for all her efforts in that aspect. One day, I don't know what it is that I said or I did. She turned her back and told me, "You know what, Tamara? One day you're going to be my boss." And I was like, "What are you saying? You just love the plot, woman." I really don't know where that is coming from. I really didn't understand what she was saying, because I saw her like that's as much as I could aspire ever, to be a theater sister and be in charge of the department and the specialty. And she was talking to me like I could be her boss. Like, what else was there? So what she did tell me across all the time I was with her was, get yourself a plan. Tamara, get yourself a plan. Where do you want to go? Just put a plan in place and get there. And one day you will be my boss. I said, okay, well, okay, so let's start. Maybe I can get a 1-6. So that's how I started building my plan slowly, bit by bit. But at the time, I really didn't know what the possibilities were. I thought the world finished at band 7 in theaters. So she was so right. And when she meant get yourself a plan, she meant get yourself a personal development plan. And that is about streamline your goals. Where do you want to get in the short term, in the mid-term, and in the long term? And in order to get to the long term, what are the midpoint goals that you need to achieve? What are the milestones that you need to achieve to get to that very end goal? So it is important that you guys do that work, that you understand where do you want to get, and you start working on your own personal development plan. And based on that, you will be much more successful at choosing employers and understanding what's better for your own future. So what the personal development plan is going to look like, it's going to have many elements. Firstly, education, and that can be in the form of courses. It could be CPDs, opportunities. It could be reading. It could be shadowing. It could be being exposed to doing new things, taking new tasks at work. But whatever it is, as I said earlier, take the opportunity. Be curious, and don't let that opportunity go. Just take it with you. I've been talking about opportunity all along, but the opportunity, it will not come to you, okay? You need to go and find it. Meaning, it is very important that you choose an employer who is going to facilitate that opportunity. And if the employer is not going to facilitate the opportunity, and that is a stopper for your own personal development plan, then move on. Do whatever it takes for your own development. Don't wait for that opportunity to come to you. Go and find it. Because if you find it, if you go and look for it, you probably find it. I encourage everyone to challenge your comfort zone. The moment that you get stagnant doing one same job every single day, the opportunities for learning and for growth are going to actually diminish. So as I referred earlier, if you have the opportunity to take on more, get exposed to new experiences, just take it because it will add value to your career progression. And also have a critical mindset. That means criticize yourself, reflect on your own experience, on your own practice, but also those around you. And that links with having mentors and having role models. I've been very lucky in terms of mentors. Most of the times I've had people who have supported me, who have shared their knowledge, who have believed in me even when perhaps I didn't. And that has helped my career progression a lot. But I've also been in the position where the person who was supposed to be my mentor perhaps wasn't as good as or as well performing as I would like them to be. However, through that critical mindset, you were able to analyze what is it that you want to be and what you don't. So even if your mentor perhaps is not that supportive, or if you think, oh, I would do things differently, that experience is allowing for that process of thinking to actually learn from it and take it as a learning opportunity rather than focusing on the negatives within that situation. Also, have your values clear. And again, the critical mindset and the mentors will help you with that, because if you are doing something you don't believe in, you're not going to enjoy what you are doing. It is as simple as that. So make sure that the organization that you choose to work in is aligned with your own personal values. And also, it's extremely important collaboration and networking. That means building links within your own department, but if you have the opportunity, also build links outside your own department, because you never know in this life. And you know, I wouldn't say I believe in karma, but if you open your network and you collaborate with other people, you will show your value, and the opportunities could become more available to you in future. So that's pretty much what the elements that you need to consider to the development of that personal development plan, which very likely are going to help in your career progression. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to talk about what theaters could potentially offer you. And I'm going to talk here about purely what I know. Other organizations perhaps would have slightly different pathways. But this is what I know, and that I'm confident I can offer to our workforce at the moment. So, like in every organization, you have your clinical foundation pathway. So in theaters, it's really routine to have scrub, anesthetic, and the recovery route. So you choose one and get into one. If you are a nurse and you have not worked in theaters before, you will easily access the scrub or recovery practitioner route. And for the anesthetic practitioner route, you need to go through a specialized course. So it could be something that could be accessible to you in the future, but your entry route to the theaters would be a scrub or recovery. If you are purely interested in this part of the pathway, if you're interested in doing the clinical work, I suggest that when you look for an employer, for the employer to be keen and supportive on people moving from one specialty to another. So that means if you start in a scrub, but actually you want to do anesthetics or recovery in future, you can do so, and your employer supports you through the specialist courses to achieve that competency. So that's one of the key questions that you should be looking at when you look for an employer. Then, if you want to move up the ladder, then the natural route would be through your area of specialism. So, for example, if you are a recovery practitioner, you would start with your foundation level on a kind of band 5 equivalent, then into senior recovery practitioner, and then you could potentially get into to be a team leader or the nurse in charge of that unit at band 7 equivalent level. And same thing with the surgical specialties and with the anesthetic specialty. We have the route of the surgical care practitioner, which is a natural progression for the clinical skills in the scrub area. So surgical first assistant, for those who are not familiar with the role, it's an extended role for nurses or ODPs, where they act as the first assistant for the operation. So if that's something that you are keen on doing or developing, I suggest you find a employer that would support you through the course, not only through the cost, but through the support that you need to actually complete your competencies and your hours to achieve the qualification. Important as well that they could potentially support you with tutoring. And so if they have a educational function in the department, that could be helpful for yourself in the course. And then the next step within that pathway will be the surgical care practitioner. So the surgical care practitioner will be an extension of that SFA role, which allows you to do more complex specialties and allow you to open up for robotic surgery, for example. But the role is not purely for theaters. It has an element of a perioperative element. So meaning that you will be looking after the governance for the scope of practice of that role. And if we go into the specifics, it will be about pre-assessment, but also post-operative monitoring of those patients. And then this very unique role as a clinical quality and clinical education practitioner could be another potential route. In other organizations, it could be a complete and purely clinical education route. So it could be that it starts as a practice. It is not practice assessors. Practice educators on advanced 6 level, and then moves into a clinical educator role on advanced 7 level. So when we talk about the practice educator at advanced 6 level, it's a role that focuses on teaching new starters and students the basic skills of the specialty. And then when you look at clinical education roles, they are more around developing the framework and analyzing the training needs of that department to put the strategy in place and develop that strategy. So that's what we can see in terms of band 7 equivalent level. But the world doesn't stop there. There are so many more opportunities that you could access potentially from here. So when we talk about the operational management roles, we could be talking about theater managers. We could be talking about modern matron for a theater kind of role. And behind that, or above that, I would say, we will have roles such as directorate manager, divisional manager, and you could get all the way up to your to be an operations director or director of nursing, something along those lines. If what you are interested in is senior management. When we talk about institutional quality and governance, there are so many other roles within the organization that could support, that will support that governance function. So if you are interested in the education bit for the quality bit, we could talk about roles like patient safety manager for the hospital, modern matron for practice education, head of governance, and potentially you could aspire, if your organization doesn't end in the hospital, and it is a worldwide organization, like it could be Bupa, for example, you will be looking at roles for quality assurance at national or international levels. Next slide, please. So now we've talked about how to get yourself a plan to boost your career. We talk about the opportunities that theaters could offer to your own career. Now, I just wanted to give you some tips for finding the right employer, okay? So it is really important that you don't lose your time, basically. So I encourage you to do informal visits because when you step into a new role, the minimum amount of time that you're going to spend in that role is probably going to be 1 year. So you need to start by asking, is this role going to add up to my long-term goal, to my long-term career plan? So be, very, very picky about what role you choose, and don't lose your time into going into a role or an organization that is not going to support your career aspirations. So just a few practical tips. I encourage you to do informal visits. Just by doing that, you are likely to meet the person that is going to interview you. You're going to see the work environment. You could start to see how people interact in that department and whether that will be a culture that you will fit in. So very, very recommendable that you do an informal visit. ask questions. So if you are determined to build your career, whether it is upwards or across, ask questions such as, how is the department going to support my learning and development? What are the existing opportunities for staff? And what does the organizational chart look like? Because if you can see that the role that you would like to be doing in future is already part of that structure, then you're probably in the right place. Even if 5 years or how many years down the line that role is occupied, you know that at least you have a role model to look at, and that you potentially will have the opportunity to have a mentor that would prepare you to get into a similar role. And then if in 5 years you are ready to step into that role, and you have the skills, you have the preparation, but the opportunity is not available in your company, then, as I said earlier, don't be afraid of moving aside and going and finding the opportunity elsewhere. Because in terms of us, if that is the case, for me it's a success. The fact that we have prepared you to grow and fly, if we are unable to offer you the opportunity, which actually I'm hoping we do, but if we don't, it will be for me a success that I will feel accomplished, that I have prepared you to grow and to meet your own goals. Also, understand your priorities. Don't rush to accept an offer. Make an informed decision. Ask all the questions you need before accepting an offer, and understand whether that opportunity is the best for your career development. And be aware of your strengths. At the moment, the market is very competitive and very scarce. So don't make a rash decision. Don't rush to accept an offer. Just play your strengths and go to choose an employer that will truly support you, and that have people and their employees at the center of their practice. Next slide. Thank you. So that's it from me today. Thank you very much for your attention. I will open the floor for questions and answers, but if something doesn't get answered today, please feel free to reach me on my email, and I'm also on LinkedIn, and I will be more than happy to support you to the best of my ability.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Tamara. Really, really insightful. And I think we've all learned a lot from that, especially, obviously, the nurses who are involved. Obviously, I've learned a lot myself. We do actually have some questions that have come in. This one is not really a question, but I will obviously ask the question off the back of it. So someone called Lynn has joined us from Kenya, saying she has a passion in theatre nursing. She's applying for jobs at the moment in the UK. And she hopes she gets a chance soon to come over and specialize within theatres. But the question I was going to ask was, is it sort of possible to come to the UK and with experience from your home country within theatres to get a job as a theatre nurse immediately?
Well, that's really interesting question. We are currently running an international recruitment program. And we are certainly taking nurses from abroad who don't have a registration in the UK yet, but we are fully supporting the right candidates to join our organization. They are joining as registered nurses, and we will support them through their development and towards their OSCEs. So the answer is yes, the opportunity is there, and I'm again more than happy to explore that option. I believe Ruth has just got her hand up. Ruth Pombi is our divisional manager for theatres and angio. So perhaps she wanted to add something else.
Tamara.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Joe, can I? Sorry, Tamara, just wanted to say thank you so much for your talk. That was very, very, very good. Thank you. But I just wanted to answer the question about the nurse from Kenya. I have been in this country for some years now, but I trained in Zimbabwe. So all I just wanted to say is that, yes, you actually have got the the skills and the experience, if you already work in theatres, to come and work in an operating theatre in the UK. But obviously there's a lot of steps that will need to be followed to get to that point. But the answer is yes.
Perfect. And just to follow on from that, is there any sort of courses that you would recommend to international nurses to maybe put themselves in the best position to stand out in obviously a crowded market, as you mentioned earlier?
Not necessarily. If they're still abroad, their experience is what matters. And it's just about being able to satisfy the NMC, which is our UK CC registration. And the only thing is the English language test that they have to do, which is the EILTS test. And that's all that's required, and the experience that you've got as a nurse in theatres.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much for that. That was a really, really good answer from both of you. Another question we have in the chat is regarding what do you need to demonstrate to get yourself from scrub nurse up to senior scrub nurse?
Sorry,
get that muted.
Sorry, Joe, would you mind repeating the question again?
Of course, that's no worries at all. So the question is, what do you need to demonstrate as a scrub nurse to get yourself up and promoted to senior scrub nurse? Is there any particular things?
So it's about your role within that theater. So whilst the junior scrub nurse will be fundamental for the operations in terms of she will be scrubbing, circulating, and doing all the clinical basics. As a senior scrub nurse, you are expected to look at the big picture. You are expected to be in charge of that theater, to organize your operation list, and also to support your Band 7 towards the maintenance and procurement of that clinical specialty. So it's more, obviously you will need all the clinical skills for that surgical or that specialty within theaters, but also you need to start supporting the department towards the provision of the service. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely, that makes a lot of sense. And then Claudia has a question asking, how can one get knowledge in other scrub specialties? I'm in the UK, originally from Ghana. My experience is in ophthalmic theatre, but I wish to have exposure within other fields within theatres. Yeah.
So my advice would be to find an employer that is keen on rotating the candidate from one specialty to another. When it comes to, for example, eye surgery, we see that we have specialized hospitals in the country. So if you want to increase your scope of practice and learn all the surgical specialties, my advice would be, if your employer cannot offer this opportunity, then consider other options, and you know, go to. There's so many hospitals that would offer this option. The big NHS hospitals, or you know, hospitals like Cromwell Hospital, where we do a really wide range of surgical specialties, would definitely give you the opportunity to move across specialties and widen your area of expertise.
Nice. And then, is there any particular set amount of years that you need as a staff nurse in theatres before being promoted to senior, or is it just a case of demonstrating those skills that you've mentioned?
It's more about demonstrating your competency in the role. Some employers may have their own set of rules regarding years of experience, and that will be identified in the job description. But it's normally more about being able to do the work or demonstrate the willingness and the potential to do the work. And as many employers will be keen on giving a senior position based on your potential, rather on than anything else, if that makes sense.
Sure. And then another question from Valerie is asking, she's currently a senior scrub practitioner and her career aspirations lie in becoming a surgical first assistant. she can't seem to find a job opening so far that's willing to train someone or help someone to become work in that role as a surgical first assistant. Normally I see adverts for experienced ones. How do I go about this?
So one of the things with the surgical first assistant role is that in the public hospitals, there is no need for this role because you already have doctors that are performing the role. But there are other employers that would be able to offer the opportunity. Very unlikely is that they will open that opportunity to an external candidate. They will normally use that funding towards developing their own staff. So my suggestion for the person answering this question is to find an employer who is already supporting their internal staff towards the SFA course, because you know that you have the projection and in future you will have the opportunity towards development in that area of expertise. But these kind of opportunities are, as I said, normally to develop the existing staff and the existing workforce in the department, and very rarely are going to be open for external candidates.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense. Any other questions, please do put them into the chat. I have one final one for myself. Would you obviously mentioned at the end of your slide, the last slide that you had, that if you're interviewing for a post or maybe even post-interview, you recommend obviously asking as many questions as possible and even doing informal visits. Would you say that charge nurses and theatre managers are on the whole approachable to applicants who are seeking to visit the department before accepting the role or even before interview? And if they're not open to that, would that be sort of almost like a red flag for you?
Well, I can only speak for myself. I'm more than happy. I'm so proud of my department and my team, and I am so happy to welcome everyone and showcase the excellent work that my team does. So I wouldn't have a single problem to show that to any potential candidates. In fact, I've been doing informal visits, and we are having a bit of a session scheduled next month in the hospital for potential candidates to come and have a chat with us and look around and have some tea and coffee and some cake. So yes, if I don't know if that would be a red flag, but certainly a department with an open culture and proud of what they do wouldn't have a problem with showing that to any potential candidate.
Perfect. There's actually one final question that's come in from Claudia. And the question is, do you pay sponsorship? Do you offer sponsorship visas? Which the answer is yes, I believe. So that's that. There's no more questions. So thank you so much for your time, Tamara. Really appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday evening to provide us with this presentation. And I think everyone has learned a lot. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.